What if I told you that the very foundation of the British monarchy has just been shaken, not by scandal, not by divorce, not even by abdication, but by a cold, calculated decision made by the man who will one day wear the crown? Imagine the future King of England, Prince William, looking straight into the cameras, his voice steady, his expression unreadable, as he declares that two of the most controversial figures in modern royal history, his own brother and sister-in-law, will never again be called the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Imagine hearing those words. From this day forward, those titles will no longer be recognized by the crown. It's not a rumor. It's not speculation. It's not an exaggeration. It's William's vow. Permanent. Irreversible. Final. Now pause for a moment and let that sink in. What does it mean for Harry, for Meghan, and for the monarchy itself? What happens when the heir to the throne draws a line in the sand so firm, so public, and so absolute that it can never be walked back? This isn't just a royal squabble. This is a declaration of war within the family, and the fallout could ripple across the globe. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But before we dive into the why, let's confront the how. How did we get here? How did we arrive at a point where William, the calm, steady, dutiful prince, the one groomed from birth to avoid drama and scandal, now stands as the executioner of his own brother's royal identity? To understand the weight of this decision, you have to step back into the stormy years leading up to it. Think about it. Every royal family has its disagreements, but rarely does it spill so viciously into the public arena. The Oprah interview, the Netflix series, the memoir Spare, each revelation cut deeper into the House of Windsor. Each headline seemed designed to wound. And while the world gawked, William remained largely silent. The strong, quiet type. The elder brother who shouldered the burden of the crown while his younger brother lit fires from the sidelines. But silence, as history teaches us, is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the slow build to an explosion. And here we are. The explosion has happened. William has crossed the Rubicon, and there is no going back. Now let's set the scene. Picture the grandeur of Buckingham Palace, the weight of tradition echoing through its gilded halls. These walls have heard centuries of royal proclamations, abdications, marriages, deaths, wars. And yet this announcement, cold and sharp as a blade, feels different. Not a moment dictated by fate, but by choice. Not a tragedy forced upon the crown, but a calculated strike by its future king. That's what makes this decision so shocking. William isn't reacting to history, he's making it. And the words themselves? They cut deeper than any tabloid headline. They are now Mr. and Mrs. Mountbatten Windsor. Stripped not only of their status, but of their very identity in the royal sphere. That's more than just a name change. It's erasure. It's exile. It's William saying, "You wanted independence? Here it is. No half measures. No titles to fall back on. You are on your own." But here's the contradiction that makes this moment so fascinating. Titles in the monarchy are more than ceremonial. They're currency. They carry weight, influence, prestige. They're how you're introduced on the world stage. Meghan wasn't just Meghan Markle at a Hollywood premiere. She was Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. That title opened doors in Hollywood, Washington, and beyond. Harry wasn't just Harry Windsor. He was the Duke of Sussex. Together, those titles became part of their brand, their global empire, their bargaining chip in media deals worth millions. And William has just shattered it with one stroke. So what drove him here? Was it the years of relentless attacks? The sense of betrayal that his brother not only left the family but profited from its secrets? Was it Meghan's positioning of herself as a victim while cashing in on royal status she claimed she despised? Or was it something deeper? William's vision for the monarchy itself? A monarchy streamlined, untarnished, free of distractions, where the crown isn't dragged into celebrity culture and Netflix specials. Ask yourself, is this personal vengeance, or is it the act of a future king protecting his realm? Let's rewind the clock for just a moment. Remember when the Queen gave Harry and Meghan those titles in 2018? It was a gift, a gesture of love, of inclusion, of trust, a chance for the newlyweds to carve their own path while still serving the crown. At the time, the Sussex title was supposed to represent renewal, a fresh, modern couple breathing new life into the royal brand. Fast forward 6 years, and what do we see? Instead of renewal, rebellion. Instead of loyalty, lawsuits. Instead of strengthening the monarchy, they weakened it. And now, William, the very man who will inherit that monarchy, is saying enough is enough. And let's not pretend this decision doesn't sting Harry personally. Titles are not just fabric stitched on a uniform or words printed on an invite. They're a lifeline to identity. Harry was born a prince, but he was granted the Sussex dukedom as a wedding gift. It was his mark of honor, a recognition of his place in history. And to have your own brother, your flesh and blood, strip that away? It's not just a political move. It's humiliation. Think about Meghan too. For years she was accused of wanting the fame without the responsibility, the glitz without the duty. But at the end of the day, she embraced that duchess title like a jewel in her crown. It elevated her. It separated her from being just another actress. It made her untouchable in certain circles, and William just pulled the rug out from under her. Overnight, the duchess vanishes, and in her place stands Meghan Markle, former actress, now Mrs. Windsor. Tell me, how do you think she's taking that? But here's where the real intrigue begins. This isn't just about William versus Harry and Meghan. This is about William versus history. Future kings don't usually make these kinds of declarations before they're crowned. They don't pre-announce punishments. They wait. They preserve unity. William is breaking with that tradition. He's setting the tone for his reign before it even begins. He's saying, when I take the throne, there will be no hesitation, no wavering. The monarchy comes first, even before my brother. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. Because decisions like this don't just cut ties, they cut wounds. Families don't forget. Brothers don't forgive. And when you tear away someone's titles, you're not just stripping a name. You're stripping their dignity, their pride, their legacy. So now, we have to ask, what comes next? If William has already declared his hand, how will Harry and Meghan strike back? Do they have a countermove? Or has William cornered them for good? And how will this play out on the world stage, where every headline, every tweet, every public appearance becomes part of the royal chess game? Because here's the truth, this isn't over. Not by a long shot. William may have declared victory, but Harry and Meghan are not the type to retreat quietly. If anything, this may push them into their most aggressive campaign yet. And that means the monarchy is heading into uncharted waters, where family loyalty, royal duty, and global reputation all collide in one dramatic storm. But what forced William to cross the line and make this irreversible choice? That's where the story takes a dark turn, and it begins with a breaking point nobody saw coming. Every royal feud has a trigger. Every rift has that one moment where words can no longer be unsaid, where actions can no longer be ignored. But in the saga of Prince William and Prince Harry, the question has haunted the public for years. What was the breaking point? What finally pushed William, the man known for his calm discipline, his cautious restraint, into making a move so brutal and so final against his own brother? Was it the Oprah interview? The moment Harry and Meghan sat under California skies and accused the monarchy of cruelty and racism, with millions of viewers worldwide gasping in disbelief? Was it the Netflix documentary, where private moments were turned into public ammunition, where every frown, every icy glance, every story behind closed doors became fuel for global gossip? Or was it Spare, Harry's memoir, a book so raw and explosive that it described William not as a beloved brother, but as a rival, a bully, even a villain? Think about it. These weren't whispers in the corner of a drawing room. These were megaphones, blasted across oceans. Every word stained William's image, not just as a brother, but as the future king. How long could he endure humiliation before he acted? William has always been seen as the protector, the one who shouldered responsibility after their mother's death. He was 12 years old when Diana's coffin was pulled through the streets of London, and he walked beside Harry, the world watching every step. From that moment, William wasn't just a grieving son. He was an heir with a duty. His life would be defined by service, silence, and control. Harry's? Less so. He was the spare, the wild one, the one who could afford to make mistakes. But mistakes turned into choices. Choices turned into attacks. And those attacks became unbearable. Here's the truth. William tolerated it longer than most people realize. Years of barbed comments, subtle digs, and public contradictions. He swallowed them, Because duty demanded restraint. But duty has its limits. Behind palace walls, insiders whisper that William felt betrayed not just as a brother, but as a man who had defended Harry time and time again, only to be stabbed in the back. Take the moment in Spare when Harry described a physical altercation, claiming William grabbed him, pushed him, knocked him to the floor. Whether true or exaggerated, that passage cemented something in the public eye. William as aggressor, Harry as victim. It was an image that clashed violently with William's carefully built reputation as the stable, reliable future king. And that was the point of no return. That moment didn't just damage William's image. It forced him to realize that silence was no longer protection. Silence, in fact, was complicity. But here's where it gets fascinating. The real breaking point wasn't just about reputation. It was about control. William watched as Harry and Meghan built a global empire on royal titles they claimed to despise. Deals with Netflix, Spotify, Penguin Random House, millions made, all with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex stamped on every press release. Imagine William's frustration. On one hand, his brother accuses the monarchy of suffocation, of cruelty. On the other hand, he trades on its name, its status, its heritage. Hypocrisy, William thought. Pure and simple. And hypocrisy, left unchecked, corrodes the monarchy itself. Ask yourself, how would you feel if your own sibling not only abandoned the family business but used its name to line their pockets? Would you let them continue? Or would you reach a point where enough was enough? William reached that point. Advisors close to him describe a man transformed, not reckless, but resolute, not angry, but determined. The kind of determination that comes not from impulse, but from years of pressure building until the dam finally bursts. And the breaking point wasn't just about the past. It was about the future. William isn't just a brother. He's the heir to the throne. Every decision he makes now casts a shadow over his reign to come. Could he really inherit the crown while his brother and sister-in-law roamed the world, stirring scandal, wearing the royal brand like a costume? Could he let that circus continue unchecked? Or did he need to act now, decisively, to set the tone for his monarchy? Let's be clear, stripping titles is no small gesture. It's not done lightly. It hasn't been done often in history, and when it has, it's always been seismic. Think of King George VI stripping Edward VIII after the abdication crisis. Think of Diana losing Her Royal Highness after her divorce. These were acts that defined eras. And now, William is about to add his name to that list. Not as a reactive monarch cleaning up chaos, but as a proactive one, stamping out rebellion before it festers. But this decision didn't come without cost. Behind the calm face William shows to the cameras, there is pain. Pain of a brotherhood lost. Pain of a bond shattered. Pain of knowing that the boy he once confided in, laughed with, shared grief with, is now the man he must strip of honor. That is the tragedy beneath the triumph. The personal cost of a public duty. Still, William made his choice. And here's the most chilling part. He doesn't intend to change it. Advisors say the words permanent and irreversible were chosen deliberately. Once the titles are gone, they will never return. No second chances. No reconciliation through rank. This is not just punishment, it's banishment. Now imagine Harry's reaction when he hears this. Imagine Meghan's fury. Imagine the storm that follows. Do you think they'll take it quietly? Or do you think they'll fight back with every weapon they have? Press, interviews, memoirs, allies in Hollywood and Washington? William knows they will. He's counting on it. Because for him, the more they scream, the more the monarchy appears dignified in contrast. And so we come to the cliffhanger of this chapter. William's breaking point has been reached. The line has been crossed. The silence is over. And his next move will change everything. Not just for Harry and Meghan, but for the monarchy itself. Because William's revenge wouldn't just be personal, it would be historic. Every royal title is given with intention. None are random, none are meaningless. They are crafted, chosen, and bestowed with centuries of symbolism behind them. When Queen Elizabeth II granted Harry and Meghan the title of Duke and Duchess of Sussex on their wedding day in 2018, it was more than just a gift. It was an experiment, a gamble, a signal that the monarchy was willing to evolve with the times. Think about it. Sussex hadn't been used in over a century. The last Duke of Sussex, Prince Augustus Frederick, was known for rebelling against royal norms, for supporting causes considered radical in his day. He married for love, defied convention, and often clashed with the crown. Does that sound familiar? In a way, giving Harry and Meghan the Sussex dukedom was symbolic from the start. The monarchy was saying, "Here, carve out a modern role. Break new ground. Be different, but stay within the family." The Sussex experiment was supposed to be about modernization. The hope was simple. Harry, the charismatic people's prince, paired with Meghan, the glamorous American actress, could inject the monarchy with new energy. Together, they could reach audiences and communities that the traditional royal machine struggled with. A biracial duchess in a family steeped in centuries of aristocracy, a prince who had walked through war zones, danced with children in Africa, laughed openly with the public. It was meant to be a powerful combination, a new face of the crown. But what started as a fresh chapter quickly became a cautionary tale. The experiment went wrong almost immediately. At first, the public adored them. The wedding was a global spectacle, a fairy tale for the modern age. Meghan's elegance, Harry's devotion, it all seemed perfect. But behind the palace gates, tension simmered. Meghan struggled with protocol. Harry felt sidelined. The couple wanted independence, but independence within the monarchy is a paradox. You can't have it both ways. You can't be half in, half out. The monarchy demands loyalty above all. Yet Meghan and Harry wanted to write their own rules. They launched their own Instagram account, branded themselves as Sussex Royal, and began pushing projects without palace approval. To them, this was initiative. To the palace, it was defiance. Here's the irony. The very title that was supposed to unify them with the crown became the weapon they used to distance themselves from it. Every deal they signed, every appearance they made, every headline that carried Duke and Duchess of Sussex became a reminder that they wanted the power of the monarchy without its restrictions. And William noticed. He noticed how the titles were being used, not as symbols of service, but as currency. When Meghan gave speeches in New York or Harry signed contracts in California, they weren't introduced as Harry and Meghan. They were introduced as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The title carried prestige, glamour, and most importantly, legitimacy. Without it, they were just celebrities. With it, they were royal exiles who still carried the crown's seal of authenticity. Ask yourself, can you think of another moment in history when a royal title was used in such a way? Not as a badge of loyalty, but as a marketing tool? That's why the Sussex experiment failed. Because it was no longer about service to the people, it was about service to themselves. And the consequences? They were massive. Instead of modernizing the monarchy, the Sussexes turned it into a global brand war. The royal family found itself battling Netflix deals, podcast releases, and magazine covers. The crown became entertainment fodder. And for William, the heir to the throne, this wasn't just embarrassing. It was dangerous. Dangerous because the monarchy is built on reverence, on mystique, on the idea that it is above the noise of celebrity culture. But Harry and Meghan dragged it down into the mud of Hollywood gossip. Every time Meghan told her story, every time Harry revealed a private family fight, it chipped away at the dignity of the institution. And William, watching from across the Atlantic, saw it all unravel. The Sussex experiment wasn't just a failure. It was a threat to the monarchy's credibility, its stability, its very survival in a modern world already skeptical of kings and queens. But here's where the story twists. Meghan didn't just embrace the Sussex title, she weaponized it. In America, she leveraged it to gain influence, to attract power players, to secure invites that ordinary actresses would never dream of. The Duchess title gave her access to Washington's elite, Hollywood's inner circle, and global charities eager to be associated with royalty. Without the title, she was Meghan Markle. With it, she was Duchess Meghan, an international icon. To William, that was the betrayal. The Sussex dukedom had been meant as a gift of trust, a chance to serve. Instead, it became a brand name stamped across book covers and TV contracts. And when Meghan used that title on U.S. soil to imply royal endorsement, without the crown's consent, that was the moment William saw the final straw. Can you imagine how galling it must have been? Watching your brother and sister-in-law, who publicly claimed to want freedom from the monarchy, use the monarchy's titles to build an empire? That contradiction burned at William, and he knew the experiment had to end. The Sussex title, once seen as hopeful and modern, was now toxic. It represented rebellion, greed, and hypocrisy, and William, as the future king, couldn't allow that stain to linger. But here's the cliffhanger. Ending the experiment wasn't going to be as easy as cutting ties. There were legal hurdles, historical precedents, and advisors whispering about consequences. Could William actually revoke the titles? Did he even have the authority? And if he did, what would happen next? The answer shocked even the royal lawyers. Behind the walls of Kensington Palace, history isn't just preserved, it's written. The gilded corridors, the hidden meeting rooms, the quiet, soundproof chambers. These are the spaces where the monarchy decides its future, far away from the prying eyes of cameras and the roar of the public. And it was in these very rooms, behind locked doors, that Prince William began to explore an idea so radical, so unprecedented in modern royal history, that even his closest advisors were stunned into silence. Could he, as future king, actually strip Harry and Meghan of their titles? Could he erase the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, not just from formal address, but from royal history itself? At first glance, it sounds impossible. After all, royal titles are seen as permanent, immutable, tied to blood and marriage. But in the monarchy, nothing is truly permanent, not even crowns. Titles have been revoked before. Edward VIII lost his royal style after abdication. Diana lost her Royal Highness after her divorce. Sarah Ferguson, once Her Royal Highness the Duchess of York, was reduced to plain Sarah, Duchess of York, when her marriage collapsed. History had shown that titles could be stripped. The question wasn't if. The question was how. So William summoned his closest legal minds and advisors. Imagine the scene. A heavy oak table, the heir to the throne seated at its head, his face calm, but his jaw tight with resolve. Around him, senior courtiers, lawyers versed in centuries of constitutional law, communication strategists, and even a historian or two brought in to weigh precedent. The topic was clear, the Sussex question, and the stakes were enormous. On one hand, removing the titles could restore dignity to the monarchy, ending once and for all the contradiction of Harry and Meghan trading on royal status while attacking the institution. On the other, it risked escalating the feud to a point of no return. Advisors warned William, if you take this step, reconciliation may never be possible. You will be remembered not just as a brother, but as the executioner of your own blood. But William didn't flinch. The crown must come first, he reportedly said. Always. And so began the legal deep dive. Could William legally strip the titles as heir, or did he need to wait until his coronation? Could Parliament be involved, as it had been in the past with matters of succession? The answers weren't simple. Some experts argued that only the reigning monarch could officially revoke a peerage. Others pointed to the future king's authority in shaping the line of succession and titles within the family. The conversations grew tense. Every move had consequences. Stripping the titles too soon could appear vengeful, petty, even cruel. Waiting until he became king could appear weak, allowing Harry and Meghan to continue exploiting their titles in the meantime. William wanted a balance, decisive yet dignified, ruthless yet justified. It wasn't just a legal question. It was a moral one. Could a brother, even as heir, publicly disown his sibling in such a way? What would it mean for the image of the monarchy, already bruised by scandals and controversies? But William had something that lawyers and historians didn't. Instinct. His instinct told him that the monarchy's survival mattered more than personal sentiment. His instinct told him that Harry and Meghan's brand of celebrity monarchy, if left unchecked, could overshadow the crown itself. And his instinct told him that sometimes the only way to protect tradition is to break with it. Still, the secrecy of these meetings was absolute. Only a handful of people knew the true scope of William's intentions. Every document was confidential. Every note was destroyed after discussion. The palace knew that if word leaked too soon, the media frenzy would be uncontrollable. But here's where things get truly fascinating. Within those secret discussions, a startling discovery was made. According to insiders, the lawyers confirmed something William hadn't fully anticipated. It was possible to make the removal permanent, binding, and irreversible. Once declared, once signed, it couldn't be undone, even by future monarchs. The room fell silent when that revelation was made. Imagine the weight of it. William wouldn't just be punishing his brother. He would be rewriting history. He would be erasing Sussex as a living title, condemning Harry and Meghan to forever be Mr. and Mrs. Mountbatten-Windsor. Not just in his reign, but in every reign that followed. That permanence was staggering. Advisors hesitated. Was this too much? Was it too final? One warned. You may be remembered as the king who destroyed his brother, not the king who saved the crown. But William didn't blink. In his mind, it was already decided. And here's where the story twists again. While these closed-door meetings took place, rumors began to seep out. Not the specifics, but whispers of discontent. Journalists reported that William was hardening his stance, that he was considering measures against Harry and Meghan. Of course, no one knew what those measures were. But the leaks were enough to stir speculation, enough to send Harry and Meghan scrambling. Harry, from California, began calling family members for reassurance. Meghan, ever the strategist, reportedly told friends that William was bluffing, that he wouldn't dare make such a public move. After all, she reasoned, the monarchy needed her diversity, her star power, her global influence. She believed William was constrained. She was wrong. Behind closed doors, William was already drafting the language. Precise, clinical, devastating. Words that would one day be read across the world. From this day forward, those titles will no longer be recognized by the crown. But if William was preparing his strike, Harry and Meghan were preparing their defense. Behind their own gates in Montecito, they began plotting their next moves. More interviews? A second memoir? A documentary sequel? Meghan was determined to stay one step ahead. What neither of them knew was that William had already outmaneuvered them. He wasn't just planning to strip their titles. He was planning to ensure they could never be reclaimed. And that was the revelation that shocked even the royal lawyers. In public, Prince William is the image of calm control. His posture is upright, his words measured, his tone polite but never dramatic. To the world, he is the dutiful son, the loyal heir, the man destined to wear the crown without ever letting the burden show. But behind the palace doors, in the privacy of his home and the security of his inner circle, there exists another William, one the cameras never see. This William is not just calm. He is calculating. He is not just polite. He is strategic. And in the war against Harry and Meghan, it is this private William, not the public one, who now takes center stage. Let's begin with the contrast. In public, William continues to play the part of the statesman in waiting. He smiles for the cameras. He bows his head at ceremonies. He shakes hands with dignitaries, leans down to greet children, projects warmth and humility. His every move is designed to reassure the public that the monarchy is in safe hands, that the chaos surrounding his brother cannot shake the foundation of the crown. To millions, William appears untouched by the drama. But in private, a very different story unfolds. Behind closed doors, William is furious. Not with the press, not with advisors, but with his own brother. Furious at Harry's betrayal. Furious at Meghan's manipulation. Furious at the years of silence that allowed their narrative to grow unchecked. And here's the contradiction that makes this fascinating. William's public image of composure isn't fake. It's armor. It's strategy. He knows that exploding in anger in front of cameras would only confirm Harry and Meghan's narrative, that the monarchy is cold, cruel, vindictive. So he wears his mask, holds his tongue, and channels his rage into something far more effective: planning. Ask yourself, which is more powerful, an heir who shouts in frustration, or an heir who smiles calmly while secretly plotting his brother's downfall? The second one. And that's exactly who William has become. Think about the public moments we've seen in recent years. Harry and Meghan at Queen Elizabeth's funeral, standing apart from William and Kate. The icy glances, the stiff body language. The brothers barely spoke, and when they did, their words were formal, strained, devoid of warmth. Cameras caught every flicker of tension, every awkward silence. But William never snapped, never gave Harry the satisfaction of a visible outburst. To the world, he remained the professional heir. To Harry, it must have been maddening, because in private, William had already decided that Harry's fate was sealed. But how does a man keep two faces, one for the world, one for himself? The answer lies in William's upbringing. From childhood, he was taught the art of compartmentalization. Diana's death forced him to grieve privately while smiling publicly. The institution demanded it. The press intrusion demanded it. He learned to separate his emotions from his duties. Harry never could. That difference became the fault line between them. And now, that same skill is what gives William the upper hand. In private meetings with his closest advisors, William no longer pretends. He speaks candidly, his voice sharper, his words decisive. He refers to Harry and Meghan not as partners in the royal family, but as obstacles, threats, even liabilities. Insiders whisper that William's tone is cold, clipped, almost businesslike when discussing them, as though he has detached emotionally in order to deliver the harshest judgment possible. And yet, outside those palace walls, William still greets the cameras with a polite nod and a steady hand. The public sees none of the fury, none of the vengeance. That is the brilliance of his strategy. Because every smile, every calm appearance makes Harry and Meghan's attacks look exaggerated, bitter, even childish. William doesn't need to defend himself. He lets his silence, his composure, make their words look small. But here's the twist. That composure is not weakness. It's the calm of a man who already knows how the story ends. While Meghan gives interviews and Harry writes memoirs, William sits quietly with advisors drafting the announcement that will strip them of their Sussex identity forever. It's the ultimate power move. Why lash out in the press when you can destroy your opponents with one cold, official declaration? Still, this duality takes a toll. Behind the facade of calm, William is deeply wounded. Friends say he struggles with the personal loss of his brother, the memory of the boy he once laughed with, fought with, confided in. There is pain there, buried beneath the strategy. But William has decided that the monarchy must come before his heart. It's the sacrifice of the heir. And this brings us to a crucial question. How long can a man live with two faces? How long can William maintain the public calm while privately preparing the most brutal strike of his life? Because here's the truth. His mask won't hold forever. At some point, the private William will become the public William. At some point, the calm heir will transform into the ruthless king-in-waiting. And that moment came faster than anyone expected. Because William's decision wouldn't stay private for long. It was about to explode into the open. It began with a whisper, the kind that drifts out of palaces and into newsrooms, the kind that sends journalists scrambling and cameras whirring. But within hours, that whisper turned into a roar. The world wasn't prepared for what Prince William had just done. No one was. The announcement came with the weight of a thunderclap. Calm, composed, devastating in its simplicity. Prince William, heir to the throne of the United Kingdom, future King of England, had spoken words that would forever alter the course of royal history. From this day forward, those titles will no longer be recognized by the crown. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, titles once bestowed with hope and pride, were gone. Just like that. Harry and Meghan had been erased from the royal record, stripped down to Mr. and Mrs. Mountbatten-Windsor. Pause for a moment. Can you feel the gravity of that? Titles aren't just formalities in the monarchy. They are identity. They are protection. They are legitimacy. To strip them away isn't just to punish. It's to exile. It's to declare, publicly, before the world, you are no longer one of us. Now, imagine the setting. No flashing lights. No dramatic speech. Just William, measured and clear, his words deliberate, his tone unshakable. He didn't scream. He didn't gloat. He didn't even elaborate. He let the simplicity of the statement carry the weight. And that silence, that calm, surgical precision, made the decision land like a blade. The reaction was immediate. News alerts exploded across the globe. Royal titles gone, screamed tabloids in London. William makes final move against Harry and Meghan, flashed across American networks. Twitter, or rather, the global public square, erupted. Hashtags trended within minutes. Hashtag title stripped. Hashtag Mountbatten-Windsors. Hashtag royal shock. And yet, amid the noise, one question echoed louder than the rest. Why now? Why did William finally act? Was this revenge, or was it reform? Was it about family, or was it about monarchy? For the British public, reactions split down the middle. Many cheered. Crowds outside Buckingham Palace were reported as breaking into applause when they heard the news. For them, it was justice. After years of watching Harry and Meghan cash in on their royal status while lobbing accusations at the family, this felt like accountability. A line had finally been drawn. But not everyone agreed. Across the Atlantic, in Hollywood and parts of the American press, Meghan's defenders framed it as cruelty, as punishment, as proof of the monarchy's alleged coldness. Silencing Meghan, some headlines called it the price of dissent. And what about Harry? What about Meghan? Insiders say the couple was blindsided. Harry reportedly found out not from a family phone call, but from a news alert. Imagine that. Your brother, your flesh and blood, stripping you of your royal identity, and you don't even get the courtesy of a warning. Meghan, according to sources, was livid. They can't do this to us, she was said to have shouted in disbelief. But they could, and they did. Harry's fury was quieter, but no less intense. Friends describe him as pacing, clenching his fists, muttering under his breath that William had gone too far. To him, this wasn't just about a title. It was about dignity. It was about being erased by the very institution that had shaped his entire life. Now, let's not forget the symbolism here. Duke and Duchess of Sussex wasn't just a title. It was a brand. It was stamped on every deal, every appearance, every press release. It was how they marketed themselves to the world. Without it, they weren't royals on the global stage. They were just Harry and Meghan, celebrities fighting to stay relevant. Overnight, William had stripped away not just honor, but power. Ask yourself, was this William's real goal all along? Not just to punish, but to dismantle the empire Harry and Meghan built in America? Think of the timing. The Sussexes had just launched new ventures. Meghan was rumored to be working on new projects in Hollywood. Harry had hinted at more memoirs, more tell-alls. Their empire was alive. And now, suddenly, the rug was pulled from under them. Without titles, their marketability plunged. Without titles, their royal allure dimmed. William's strike wasn't just emotional, it was financial. And yet, for all the speculation, William himself said little more than those few lines. He didn't give explanations. He didn't justify himself. He didn't enter the PR circus. He knew he didn't need to. The weight of his words was enough. But here's where the story gets even more gripping. The real drama wasn't in the headlines. It wasn't in the cheering crowds or the outraged tweets. It was in the private fallout. Because if William thought this move would silence Harry and Meghan, he was wrong. It did the opposite. Behind the gates of their Montecito mansion, the couple began plotting their counterattack. Meghan immediately called her PR team. Phone lines buzzed with strategists, allies, and sympathetic journalists. Harry, though shaken, began drafting responses. They would not take this quietly. They would not allow William to define the narrative. But William was ready for that. In fact, he was counting on it. Every scream, every accusation, every public tantrum would only make his calmness look stronger, his decision more justified. He had forced Harry and Meghan into a trap. Respond too loudly, and they looked petty. Stay silent, and they looked defeated. The announcement was heard around the world. But the loudest shockwave wasn't in the press. It wasn't in the public. It came from the very man at the heart of the storm, Harry himself. Because William's cold, calculated words didn't just strip him of a title. They stripped him of something far more devastating, his identity. And Harry's fury was about to ignite. But William was prepared for that. Because the next move in this royal war had already been set in motion. Harry's fury didn't erupt in a single moment. It wasn't a volcanic explosion, but a slow, simmering burn that spread through his chest the instant he read those words on his phone. From this day forward, those titles will no longer be recognized by the crown. Imagine it. The man born a prince of the realm, the brother of the future king, standing in his California mansion as his entire royal identity was erased by a single sentence delivered across the Atlantic. Not a call, not a family meeting, not even a whispered warning in advance. Just a news flash, cold and public, like a dagger delivered straight to the heart. Sources close to Harry describe him as pacing the room like a caged lion. His fists clenched, his jaw locked tight. He muttered over and over again, "He can't do this. He can't do this." But deep down, he knew William could. And William had. Harry felt humiliated. Not just stripped of honor, but stripped in front of the entire world. To be reduced from the Duke of Sussex to plain Mr. Mountbatten Windsor was more than a technical change. It was a rebuke, a public shaming, A message that even his bloodline couldn't protect him from the wrath of the crown. But what cut the deepest wasn't the legality. It wasn't even the permanence. It was the betrayal. His brother, the boy he grew up with, the man he once trusted more than anyone else. The one who, after their mother's death, had whispered late-night promises that they'd always be a team against the world. That brother had now exiled him, erased him, branded him as an outsider forever. Harry's fury was personal, but Meghan's reaction? Hers was strategic. Where Harry felt wounded, Meghan felt challenged. She didn't pace in anger. She sat down with her phone, calling allies, firing off texts to her PR team, summoning her advisors. Meghan had lived in Hollywood long enough to know that every crisis was also an opportunity. "Spin this," she reportedly said. "We're not victims, they're tyrants. They're proving our point." And so the narrative war began. Within hours, sympathetic voices in the American press began floating headlines. The monarchy silences Meghan. Punishment for speaking out. Racism and retaliation. Meghan had always been skilled at framing herself as the underdog, the woman crushed by an archaic institution, the outsider punished for daring to be different. And William's decision handed her fresh ammunition. In private, Meghan told friends, "This isn't about titles. This is about control. They can't stand that I found my voice. So they're trying to erase me." It was classic Meghan, turning a loss into a moral victory, transforming personal humiliation into political capital. She positioned herself not as a duchess deprived of honor, but as a woman standing up against royal cruelty. And in America, where the monarchy is viewed with suspicion, that message resonated. But make no mistake, this was no united front. While Meghan plotted the PR counterstrike, Harry's emotions threatened to derail everything. Friends say he slammed doors, shouted at aides, demanded explanations that no one could give him. He felt powerless, stripped not only of titles, but of agency. Meghan tried to steady him. "This is our chance. Don't look weak. Look defiant." But Harry wasn't strategizing. He was seething. He wanted to hit back, not in subtle spins, but in blunt force. Another interview. Another book. Another chance to tell his story, his way. Meghan cautioned patience. But Harry's fury was a storm that could not be contained. And that's where William's genius becomes clear. Because every reaction Harry and Meghan considered played directly into William's hands. If they went loud, screaming to the press, launching new interviews, painting themselves as martyrs, they risked looking desperate, petty, attention-hungry. If they went quiet, swallowed their anger, and said nothing, the silence would read as defeat. Either way, William won. His calm, measured tone stood in stark contrast to their emotional chaos. And chaos is exactly what followed. Meghan's allies in Hollywood rushed to defend her. High-profile celebrities tweeted their outrage, calling the monarchy outdated, cruel, racist. Activists and talk show hosts lined up to offer sympathy. But the backlash wasn't one-sided. In the UK, the public largely rallied behind William. "Finally," said some headlines, "a king who will not be blackmailed." Polls showed a surge of approval for William, proof that many Britons saw the move not as cruelty, but as leadership. The divide between Britain and America widened. One country cheered William's firmness. The other amplified Meghan's narrative of victimhood. But for Harry, caught between two worlds, the torment was unbearable. He didn't want to be a victim. He didn't want pity. He wanted dignity. And William had stolen it from him. That's when the whispers began. Whispers that Harry might respond in the only way he knew how, through words. Another book, even more explosive than Spare. A second round of revelations, darker, more personal, designed to burn the bridges William thought he had fortified. Can you imagine what that would look like? The private lives of the monarchy exposed yet again, this time with even greater venom. Meghan, ever cautious, knew this could backfire. But Harry's fury was blinding him. The world watched and waited for his next move. Meanwhile, back in Kensington Palace, William remained silent. No rebuttals, no explanations, no interviews, just calm, calculated stillness. Because he knew something Harry didn't. The trap had already been set. By stripping their titles, William had forced them into a corner. Fight too loudly, and they look unhinged. Stay silent, and they fade into irrelevance. Either way, the Sussex brand weakens. But Meghan, never one to back down, had a different plan. She wasn't going to fade. She wasn't going to accept irrelevance. She was ready to use the only weapon left in her arsenal, the Duchess persona she no longer officially owned. She would play the role harder than ever. Appearances, interviews, Hollywood projects dripping with subtle jabs at the monarchy. She would wield the loss of her title not as defeat, but as proof of persecution. Yet what Meghan didn't see was that William was already 3 steps ahead. His advisors had prepared for this exact counterattack, and the palace was ready to unleash something that would leave the Sussexes reeling. Because stripping their titles was only the beginning, and William's next move would be even more devastating than the last. Every monarchy runs on symbols. The jewels, the crowns, the coats of arms, the titles, all of them are more than glitter and ceremony. They are identity. They are legitimacy. They are history, alive and breathing, stitched into every proclamation and every document. To erase a symbol is to erase a legacy. And that's exactly what Prince William did when he moved to annihilate the Sussex title itself. This wasn't just about removing a name from a website or a formal address. No, this was about something much more powerful, the deliberate dismantling of an identity that Harry and Meghan had built their entire brand upon. Picture it. The official royal communications, once peppered with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, suddenly scrubbed clean. Websites updated. Press releases revised. Invitations withdrawn. Court circulars, the official daily record of royal duties, no longer carrying the name Sussex. Overnight, it was as though the title had never existed at all. To Harry and Meghan, that erasure hit harder than any insult ever could. For years, they had relied on the Sussex identity to bolster their projects. Netflix documentaries weren't billed as a show by Harry Windsor and Meghan Markle. No, what drew the cameras, the funding, the intrigue was the Duchess and Duke persona. Their titles were their passports to global influence, their entry ticket into high society events, their leverage in boardrooms and production studios. Without it, they were just another Hollywood couple competing for attention. And that was William's genius. By killing Sussex, he didn't just strip away honor. He stripped away market value. But there's another layer here, one even darker. The Sussex name itself carried a kind of poetry. It wasn't just a title. It was a brand that Meghan had worked tirelessly to expand. Sussex Royal, their Instagram handle, amassed millions of followers before they were forced to shut it down. Sussex was plastered across websites, charitable ventures, even the couple's merchandise. To Meghan, Sussex was identity. To William, Sussex had become weaponized against the monarchy. So he did what monarchs in waiting do best. He destroyed it. Now, let's think about symbolism in history. When Edward VIII abdicated, he lost not just his crown, but his style of His Majesty. When Diana divorced, her Royal Highness was stripped away, leaving her vulnerable in ways few understood until after her death. Each act of erasure was deliberate, symbolic, final. William knew this. He knew that the true punishment wasn't financial fines or public rebukes. It was symbolic death. Take away the name, and you take away the legacy. For Harry, this was more than humiliation. It was a gutting. He had fought his whole life to carve out an identity separate from William. He was the soldier prince, the rebel, the man who married the woman of his choosing. The Sussex title had been his mark of independence within the family. And now, William had reduced him to nothing more than Mr. Mountbatten Windsor. To Meghan, it was even worse. Her Duchess title had given her a level of prestige no Hollywood role ever could. From Suits actress to royal duchess, her trajectory was the stuff of fairy tales. And now, in one stroke, William had turned that fairy tale back into a pumpkin. She was no longer Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. She was Meghan Markle, Mrs. Windsor. And that, in her eyes, was unforgivable. But here's the twist. The symbolic death of Sussex wasn't just aimed at Harry and Meghan. It was aimed at the world. William wanted to send a message, loud and clear, not just to his brother, but to everyone watching. Royal titles are not tools for profit. They are sacred. Abuse them, and they can, and will, be taken away. It was a warning shot to anyone who thought the monarchy was fragile, who believed it could be bullied into submission by media campaigns and celebrity glamour. The Sussex erasure declared that the crown was still supreme, still untouchable, still ruthless when it needed to be. And the public reaction? Explosive. In Britain, the move was hailed as decisive. Headlines praised William as a future king unafraid to do what even his father hadn't dared. A king for the modern age, some papers declared. Polls surged in William's favor. Crowds gathered outside palaces, some even chanting his name. For the first time in years, the monarchy looked united, strong, and in control. But in America, the narrative was split. Meghan's defenders cried foul, framing it as persecution. They wanted to erase her from the beginning, one pundit argued. Now they've succeeded. Talk shows buzzed with debates about race, tradition, and control. Meghan herself, according to friends, was already shaping her next public appearance to capitalize on the outrage. But William anticipated this. By stripping Sussex, he ensured that every time Meghan or Harry used their loss as a talking point, they were forced to do so as plain civilians, not royals. Every tearful story about their erasure only reinforced the fact that they no longer belonged. It was checkmate. And yet, here's where the story deepens. Because William's strike wasn't just about punishment, it was about permanence. This wasn't a temporary suspension. This wasn't a slap on the wrist. Advisors close to the palace confirmed that William had taken steps to ensure the Sussex dukedom could never be revived. It would be dead for good, erased from future generations. Think about that. Archie and Lilibet, Harry and Meghan's children, wouldn't inherit Sussex. That line was severed. What was meant to be a legacy, something passed down to symbolize their place in history, was now gone. It wasn't just Harry and Meghan being punished. It was their children, too, who would grow up without the shield of a dukedom. And that raised uncomfortable questions. Could William really punish children for the sins of their parents? Was this justice or cruelty? The debate raged across continents. But for William, the answer was simple. The monarchy comes first. Always. The symbolic death of Sussex was devastating. But William wasn't finished. This was just the first blow in a campaign that would reshape the monarchy itself. Because stripping their titles was only the beginning. His next move would reach deeper into their lives than anyone expected. And the world wasn't ready for what came next. The moment Prince William's decision became public, the shockwaves didn't stop at the gates of Buckingham Palace. They didn't end in Britain, or even in Europe. They spread outward, crossing oceans and borders, stirring debates in living rooms, parliaments, media studios, and digital platforms across the globe. Because this wasn't just a royal family drama, it was a global event. The monarchy, love it or hate it, has always had influence far beyond the UK. It's a symbol that stretches into every corner of the Commonwealth, and its scandals play out on an international stage. The stripping of Harry and Meghan's titles wasn't just about one family feud. It was about power, tradition, and identity in a world that has never stopped questioning whether monarchies should exist at all. So let's look at those ripple effects. First, the Commonwealth. Nations like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and across Africa. All places where the monarchy still has symbolic, if not direct, influence, suddenly found themselves caught in the debate. In Canada, talk shows dissected the move with fiery passion. Some voices praised William's firmness, saying it showed leadership and decisiveness. Others bristled, arguing that the decision reinforced the monarchy's reputation for cruelty and rigidity. In Australia, where Republican movements have long simmered, the decision poured fuel on the fire. If this is how they treat their own family, one commentator asked, why should Australians pledge loyalty to the crown? The debate about cutting ties with the monarchy surged, with polls showing a spike in Republican sentiment. Yet paradoxically, there was also admiration for William's strength. He wasn't dithering. He wasn't bending to media pressure. He was acting, and some Australians admired that. Across Africa, the conversation was even more complex. Meghan had often emphasized her role as a biracial woman marrying into the monarchy, and for many, she symbolized progress, at least at first. To see her stripped of titles was seen by some as confirmation of the monarchy's unwillingness to embrace true diversity. But others took a different view, noting that Harry and Meghan had distanced themselves from real charitable work on the ground in Africa after leaving the royal fold. They left us for Hollywood, one critic wrote. Now they cry about losing what they abandoned. The split was sharp. And in America, that's where the ripple became a tidal wave. For years, Meghan and Harry had cultivated their American audience. Interviews with Oprah, appearances on American talk shows, partnerships with American companies like Netflix and Spotify. They had built a safe haven of sympathy in the U.S., painting themselves as victims of a cruel, outdated institution. And for a time, it worked. But William's decision changed the dynamic. Suddenly, Harry and Meghan weren't royal exiles speaking truth to power. They were ex-royals stripped of their legitimacy. And that subtle shift mattered. American media thrives on celebrity, but royalty is a different tier. Without their titles, the Sussexes became just another Hollywood couple with a complicated backstory. The mystique dimmed. Of course, Meghan's defenders went into overdrive. Prominent Hollywood figures tweeted their outrage. "This proves everything Meghan said about them," one A-list actress declared. Influencers framed it as retaliation against a woman of color who dared to speak out. Hashtags like #Justice for Meghan trended in the US, while #StandWithWilliam trended in the UK. The cultural divide had never been clearer. But here's where it gets fascinating. American public opinion wasn't entirely on Meghan's side. For the first time, polls began showing fatigue with the Sussexes. Viewers who once devoured their interviews now asked, why are they still talking about the royal family if they want it out? William's silence, in contrast, looked dignified. While Harry and Meghan vented, William stood calm. And in America, as in Britain, calm often wins respect. The ripple effects didn't stop at public opinion. They extended into politics. In Washington, some lawmakers privately questioned whether it was wise to tie themselves too closely to Meghan and Harry, now that their royal aura had faded. Invitations slowed. Doors that once swung open for the Duke and Duchess now opened a little less widely for Mr. and Mrs. Windsor. Influence was slipping, quietly but unmistakably. Meanwhile, in Britain, the move cemented William's growing reputation as a modernizer. For years, he had been seen as cautious, measured, sometimes even too bland. But this decision changed that. It showed steel. It showed ruthlessness. And to many Britons weary of drama, it showed that their future king would put duty above sentiment, the institution above family ties. Support for William soared. His approval ratings hit levels not seen since the early days of his marriage to Kate. But not all reactions were positive. In certain corners of Britain, particularly among younger generations, questions arose. Was this justice, or was it cruelty? Should a man really wield such power over his own brother's identity? Did this prove Harry and Meghan right all along, that the monarchy crushes dissent rather than listening to it? The conversation grew heated, with debates spilling into classrooms, workplaces, even pubs. And then there was the media storm. British tabloids declared victory. "William strikes back," screamed one headline. American talk shows dissected every angle, from race to family betrayal to constitutional law. In France, papers framed it as proof of the monarchy's irrelevance. In Germany, commentators called it Shakespearean. In India, it was cast as another sign of Britain clinging to outdated traditions. The story wasn't just news, it was theater, and the whole world was watching. But perhaps the most poignant ripple effect wasn't political or cultural. It was emotional. For ordinary people around the globe, the story tapped into something deeply human. Sibling rivalry, family betrayal, loyalty versus independence. Millions saw their own family feuds reflected in the royal drama. A brother punishing a brother. A sister-in-law blamed for the split. Parents caught in the middle. It was soap opera, but it was real. And that universality made it irresistible. Still, beneath all the noise, one question lingered. What about King Charles? Was he in on the decision? Did he support his son's ruthlessness, or was he blindsided like everyone else? Because while the world debated William's boldness, the silence of the king spoke volumes. And the truth about Charles's role, or lack of it, was about to be revealed. And that revelation would change the story yet again. Silence can speak louder than words. And when King Charles remained tight-lipped after Prince William's shocking decision to strip Harry and Meghan of their titles, the world noticed. No statement, no denial, no softening of the blow. Nothing. The monarch who has spent decades battling public opinion, defending his image, and navigating scandal after scandal chose, in this pivotal moment, to say absolutely nothing. But make no mistake, silence is never neutral in the royal world. Every pause, every withheld word, every calculated omission carries meaning. And in this case, Charles's silence spoke volumes. Let's set the stage. when William delivered his cold and measured declaration. From this day forward, those titles will no longer be recognized by the crown. The media frenzy was immediate. Cameras swung to Clarence House, then to Buckingham Palace, desperate for a royal response from the reigning king. Surely, Charles would intervene. Surely, the father would speak on behalf of the son he had once called his darling boy. But Charles did not. And that silence revealed a truth many had long suspected. Charles approved. Not officially, not publicly, but quietly, subtly. The king's silence was, in its own way, a form of endorsement. Why would Charles, a man who has lived his life burdened by scandal, stand by and allow his heir to make such a brutal, irreversible move? The answer lies in both history and personality. Charles has always been cautious, sometimes even timid when it comes to confrontation. Throughout his life, he preferred compromise, smoothing over conflict with polite distance rather than bold action. This was both his strength and his weakness. It kept him afloat during the Diana years, but it also made him appear indecisive. But William? William has none of that hesitation. He is bold where Charles is cautious, decisive where Charles wavers. In William, Charles sees the future, a monarchy that is sharper, cleaner, and more ruthless when it needs to be. So when William moved to erase the Sussex titles, Charles did not interfere. He let his son act. He let the heir wield the sword.